Honey, can we talk?
Jason Walsh stood in the hallway outside his daughter's bedroom, his calloused hand frozen on the doorknob. The conversation filtering through the thin wood made his blood turn cold. Tad's so pathetic. Ava's voice carried that familiar sneer she'd perfected over the past year. Mom says he's too stupid to know what's coming. Rachel's nervous giggle followed. What if he finds out? Find out what? That we all think he's a loser? Please. The man works 2 jobs and still can't afford to buy us decent clothes. Mom's got everything figured out. Jason's chest tightened. 42 years old, and his own daughter spoke about him like he was garbage. He pressed his ear closer to the door, hating himself for eavesdropping but unable to walk away. When's Mom filing? Rachel asked. Soon. Grandma Gloria says the lawyers got it all worked out. Dad won't know what hit him. We'll get the house, his pension, everything. And the best part? He'll probably have some kind of breakdown, and then Mom can prove he's unfit. The girls burst into laughter. Jason stepped back, his work boots creaking on the old hardwood. His daughters, his little girls who used to run to him when they scraped their knees, were plotting his destruction. He walked downstairs on unsteady legs, his mind reeling. The kitchen felt different now, like enemy territory. Melissa stood at the stove, her auburn hair pulled back in a neat ponytail, looking every inch the suburban mother she pretended to be. Gloria, his mother-in-law, sat at the kitchen table. Her thin lips curved in that perpetual expression of disapproval she reserved especially for him. Jason, Melissa said without turning around, dinner's almost ready. Wash up. He used to love coming home to this. The smell of cooking food, his family gathered around the table. Now it felt like walking into a trap. How was work? Gloria asked, her voice dripping with false concern. She never asked about his job at the warehouse. Hell, she barely acknowledged his existence most days. Fine, Jason muttered, washing his hands at the sink. He caught his reflection in the window, graying temples, tired eyes, the face of a man who'd been ground down by life. When had he started looking so defeated? At dinner, the conversation flowed around him like he wasn't there. Melissa discussed Ava's college applications while Gloria nodded approvingly. Rachel pushed food around her plate, shooting nervous glances between her mother and sister. The Hendersons are getting divorced, Melissa said casually, cutting her chicken. Apparently, he tried to hide assets. Didn't work out well for him. Gloria tisked. Men always think they're smarter than they are. The courts see right through it. What kind of assets? Ava asked, suddenly interested. Oh, bank accounts, retirement funds. Some men think they can just move money around and no one will notice. Melissa's eyes flicked to Jason for just a moment. Of course, that's fraud. He'll be lucky if he gets weekend visitations. Jason set down his fork. Why are we talking about this? The table went quiet. 3 pairs of eyes stared at him like he'd interrupted something important. It's just conversation, honey, Melissa said, her voice sickeningly sweet. Why? Does it make you uncomfortable? No, good, because honest people don't have anything to worry about, do they? The words hung in the air like a challenge. Jason picked up his fork and continued eating, but the food tasted like cardboard. After dinner, while the women huddled in the living room speaking in hushed tones, Jason retreated to the garage, his sanctuary. 20 years of marriage, and this was the only space that still felt like his. He sat on an overturned crate, staring at his tools hanging neatly on the pegboard. How had it come to this? When had his wife started looking at him with such contempt? When had his daughters learned to mock him behind his back? His phone buzzed. A text from Cole, his buddy from the warehouse. Beer after work tomorrow? You look like you need it. Jason almost smiled. At least someone still gave a damn about him. He was about to head inside when he heard voices from the kitchen window. The women were still talking, and something in Melissa's tone made him freeze. Has no idea what's coming, his wife was saying. The girls are completely on board. Even Rachel's playing along now. Good, Gloria's voice. He's been dead weight for years. You deserve better than a warehouse worker who can barely pay the bills. Zane says we should move fast. The longer we wait, the more complicated it gets. Zane. Jason's arterial pressure spiked. Zane Morrison, the family friend who'd been showing up more and more lately. Smooth talker, expensive clothes, always had money to flash around. The girls loved him. He brought them gifts and took them to fancy restaurants. What about the custody situation? Gloria asked. Please, What judge is going to give custody to a man who works 16-hour days and can barely string a sentence together, especially when we show them how unstable he is? You think he'll crack? Melissa's laugh was cold. I'm counting on it. A few more pushes, and Jason Walsh will self-destruct. Then we get everything, and he gets nothing. Jason's hands clenched into fists. They were talking about him like he was already gone, like he was already defeated. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated him. He pulled out his phone and opened the voice recorder app. Whatever they were planning, he was going to be ready for it. For the first time in months, Jason Walsh felt something other than defeat. He felt dangerous. Quietly, he slipped back into the house and planted a small digital recorder behind the cookie jar on the kitchen counter. His hands were steady as he activated it and tucked it out of sight. From the living room came the sound of his daughters laughing. Once that sound had been music to his ears. Now it felt like mockery. Jason walked to the kitchen doorway and looked at his family, his wife, his daughters, his mother-in-law, all clustered together on the couch, sharing some private joke. So I'm the joke, he whispered to himself. None of them looked up. The next morning brought the kind of autumn chill that cut right through your jacket. Jason sat in his truck outside Roosevelt High School, watching teenagers stream through the front doors. He'd gotten off his warehouse shift early to pick up Rachel's forgotten lunch, the dutiful father routine he'd perfected over the years. He was about to get out when he spotted Ava near the flagpole, surrounded by her usual crew of popular kids. Something about her animated gestures made him pause and roll down his window. Totally clueless, Ava was saying, her voice carrying across the courtyard. Mom says he's basically just a wallet at this point, like literally just there to pay for stuff. Her friends giggled, but Jason caught the uncomfortable shift in a few faces. Even teenagers knew when someone was being cruel. That's harsh, Ava, one of the boys said. Whatever. Wait till the court gets his pension. Mom's lawyer says it's going to be hilarious watching him try to figure out what happened. Ava flipped her blonde hair over her shoulder. He's so pathetic he probably won't even fight it. Jason's vision blurred with rage. His own daughter, his firstborn, the little girl he'd rocked to sleep every night when she was scared of thunderstorms. She was standing in front of her school, describing him like he was nothing more than an ATM with legs. He was so focused on Ava's words that he almost missed the commotion near the parking lot. Students were pointing and laughing at something on their phones. The crowd was growing and the laughter was getting louder. Jason's stomach dropped. He knew somehow that whatever was happening involved him. He parked and walked toward the crowd, his work boots loud on the asphalt. The students parted when they saw him coming. Some looking embarrassed, others barely containing their amusement. Mr. Walsh? It was Tommy Chen, one of Rachel's classmates. The kid looked mortified. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. What are you talking about? Tommy held up his phone with shaking hands. On the screen was a video, crystal clear and damning. Melissa and Zane in the school parking lot, pressed up against Zane's BMW, kissing like teenagers. The timestamp showed yesterday afternoon, right when Melissa was supposed to be volunteering in the library. How many people have seen this? Jason asked, his voice eerily calm. It's everywhere, sir. Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Someone posted it last night and... Jason held up a hand. Who filmed it? Sarah Martinez. She was waiting for her mom and just happened to catch it. She posted it as a joke, but then it started spreading and... Tommy trailed off miserably. Jason took the phone and watched the video again. There was no mistaking what he was seeing. His wife of 20 years, the mother of his children, tongue deep with another man in front of their daughter's school. And from the way they were touching each other, this wasn't their first time. Mr. Walsh? Tommy's voice seemed to come from far away. Are you okay? Jason handed back the phone. Around him, students were pretending not to stare while obviously recording everything with their phones. By tonight, his humiliation would be complete. The cheated-on husband, too stupid to see what everyone else already knew. Yeah, he said finally. I'm fine. But he wasn't fine. As he walked back to his truck, Jason felt something break inside his chest. Not his heart. That had been dying slowly for months. This was something else, something that had been holding him back, keeping him civilized. His phone rang. Melissa. Jason, honey, where are you? I made your favorite for lunch. The fake sweetness in her voice made him sick. I'm at Rachel's school. A pause. Oh, what for? Just picking up some paperwork. He could hear her relief through the phone. She didn't know yet. Didn't know that her secret was viral video material for half the teenagers in town. Well, hurry home. I have something special planned for tonight. I bet you do. Another pause. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, Mel. I'll be home soon. He hung up and sat in his truck, staring at the school building. Students were still clustered in groups, phones out, sharing the video that had turned him into a public joke. Some of them looked sorry for him. Others just looked entertained. Jason started the engine and drove home, his mind strangely clear. By the time he pulled into his driveway, he'd made a decision. The house felt different when he walked in. The same furniture, the same family photos on the walls, but everything looked like a lie now. How long had Melissa been playing house while planning his destruction? She was in the kitchen, humming as she arranged flowers in a vase. She'd changed into a low-cut sweater and put on makeup, getting pretty for her evening with Zane, probably. "There you are," she said, turning to kiss his cheek. "I was starting to worry." Jason stood perfectly still as her lips touched his skin. "Were you?" "Of course. You know I worry when you're out driving that old truck. One of these days it's going to break down and strand you somewhere." "Mm-hmm." Jason walked to the refrigerator and grabbed a beer. "How was your day? Do anything interesting?" Melissa's smile didn't waver. "Just the usual. Volunteered at the library, ran some errands. Nothing exciting." The library. That's right. Mrs. Patterson needed help organizing the new book donations. She turned back to her flowers, missing the look on Jason's face. "Why do you ask?" Jason took a long drink of his beer, studying his wife. 20 years of marriage, and she was still beautiful. High cheekbones, green eyes, the kind of figure that turned heads at the grocery store. He'd always wondered what she'd seen in a guy like him. Now he knew. A paycheck and a roof over her head, nothing more. "Jason? You're being weird. What's wrong?" He set down his beer and pulled out his phone. Without a word, he opened the video and held it up for her to see. Melissa's face went white, then red, then white again. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time in years, she was speechless. "So," Jason said conversationally, "how was the library?" "Jason, I can explain." "Can you? Because this looks pretty self-explanatory to me." He pocketed his phone. "How long, Mel?" "It's not what you think. How long have you been screwing, Zane?" She flinched at the profanity. Jason never swore at her, never raised his voice. He was always the polite, reasonable husband. 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Jason nodded slowly. "And the divorce plans. The girl's calling me pathetic. How long has that been going on?" Melissa's mouth fell open. "How did you—" "Does it matter? What matters is that you've been planning to destroy me for God knows how long, and you thought I was too stupid to figure it out. Jason, please! Were you ever going to tell me? Or were you just going to keep lying until the papers got served?" Melissa straightened, and for a moment Jason saw the real woman underneath the suburban mother mask. Her eyes were cold, calculating. "You want the truth?" she said. "Fine. Yes, I'm leaving you. Yes, I'm taking the girls and the house and everything else I can get. And yes, you were too stupid to see it coming." Jason felt oddly relieved. Finally, honesty. "And the girls are in on it?" "Of course they are. They're tired of living like this, Jason. Tired of hand-me-down clothes and generic cereal and a father who comes home covered in grease every day." Her voice was getting stronger, more confident. "Zane can give us the life we deserve. The life you deserve." "That's right. I'm 40 years old, Jason. I'm not going to waste the rest of my life married to a warehouse worker who can barely make the mortgage payments." Jason nodded slowly. "I see. And what about love? What about the vows we made?" Melissa laughed, actually laughed. "Love? Jason, I haven't loved you in years. You're replaceable. Even your daughters think you're pathetic." The words hit him like physical blows, but Jason kept his expression neutral. "Good to know where I stand." "Finally getting the picture?" The front door slammed, and Gloria's voice echoed through the house. "Melissa, where are you, dear?" "In here, Mom." Gloria swept into the kitchen like she owned the place, which, Jason realized, she probably thought she did. She took one look at Jason's face and Melissa's defensive posture and smiled. "Oh, good. You told him. I was wondering when you'd grow a backbone." Jason turned to his mother-in-law. "Something you want to say to me, Gloria?" "Plenty. But I'll start with this. You were never good enough for my daughter. I told her not to marry you 20 years ago, and I've been proven right every single day since." "Mom?" Melissa started. "No, let me finish." Gloria stepped closer to Jason, her eyes blazing with years of accumulated contempt. You're weak. You're boring. You have no ambition, no class, no prospects. My daughter deserves a real man, not some loser who can't even afford to take her on a decent vacation." Jason stared at the old woman who'd sat at his dinner table for 2 decades, who'd opened Christmas presents he'd bought with money he'd earned breaking his back 60 hours a week. A real man like Zane? Exactly like Zane. He's successful, he's cultured, he knows how to treat a woman properly. By cheating with a married woman. Gloria's face twisted with rage. Don't you dare judge him. He's twice the man you'll ever be. Jason felt something snap inside his chest. All the years of biting his tongue, of being polite, of trying to keep the peace, it was over. Get out of my house. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out, now. Gloria's mouth fell open. You can't. This is my house. My name on the deed, my money paying the mortgage. Get out before I call the police and have you removed. Jason, Melissa warned. And you, he turned to his wife. You want a divorce? Fine. But you don't get to live in my house while you're screwing another man. You want Zane so bad? Go live with him. You can't throw us out. Watch me. Gloria stepped forward, her face purple with rage. You worthless piece of... The slap came so fast, Jason barely saw it coming. Gloria's bony hand cracked across his cheek with surprising force, leaving a stinging handprint on his skin. The kitchen went dead silent. Jason touched his cheek, feeling the heat radiating from the mark. In 20 years of marriage, no one in this family had ever laid a hand on him. Now his mother-in-law had slapped him in his own kitchen while his wife stood by and watched. Did you just punch me? He asked quietly. Gloria lifted her chin defiantly. You deserved it. Maybe now you'll remember your place. Jason stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed 911. What are you doing? Melissa shrieked. 911, what's your emergency? I'd like to report a domestic attack. A woman just struck me in my home. Jason, hang up that phone right now. The address is 347 Maple Street. I have witnesses and I want to press charges. You son of a witch, Gloria snarled. You wouldn't dare. But Jason was already giving the dispatcher his information. By the time he hung up, both women were staring at him like he'd grown a second head. They'll be here in 10 minutes, he said calmly. Gloria, I suggest you think carefully about what you're going to tell them. You're making a huge mistake, Melissa hissed. When this goes to court, I'll have video evidence of your affair and audio of you planning to destroy me. Plus attack charges against your mother. Think that's going to play well with a judge? Melissa's face went ashen. What audio? Jason smiled for the first time all day. The kind that proves you're not the innocent sufferer you're planning to pretend to be? The sound of sirens was already growing louder outside. The police took their statements, photographed the handprint on Jason's cheek, and left with Gloria in handcuffs for domestic attack. The look of pure hatred she'd given him from the back seat of the patrol car could have melted steel. Melissa had gone upstairs to pack a few things and hadn't come back down. Jason could hear her on the phone, her voice raised in agitated conversation. Probably calling Zane, maybe calling her lawyer. It didn't matter. The war had officially started. Jason sat at his kitchen table, staring at the divorce papers that had been served an hour after the police left. Melissa had filed first, claiming irreconcilable differences and asking for full custody, the house, half his pension, and alimony. Her lawyer had worked fast, too fast. This had been planned for weeks, maybe months. His phone rang. Emily, his younger sister, who worked as a paralegal downtown. Jason, I just heard from Mom. She said Gloria got arrested. Word travels fast. Are you okay? Mom said something about Melissa cheating. Jason rubbed his eyes. He was exhausted, but his mind was crystal clear for the first time in months. Em, I need your help. Professional help. What kind of help? The kind that keeps me from losing everything I've worked for. There was a pause. Are you talking about divorce proceedings? I'm talking about war. 20 minutes later, Emily was sitting across from him at the same kitchen table where his family had plotted his destruction. She was 2 years younger than Jason, but had always been the sharper one. Straight A's, full scholarship to law school, now working for one of the city's top family law firms. Jesus, Jason, she said, scrolling through the chat logs he'd discovered on Melissa's laptop. They really went all out, didn't they? Keep reading? Emily's face darkened as she read about the plan to provoke him into a breakdown. The discussions about hiding assets, the casual way his daughters talked about him like he was already dead. This is sociopathic. How long has this been going on? Long enough. The question is, what can we do about it? Emily set down the laptop and pulled out a legal pad. First things first, we file a counterpetition immediately, like tomorrow morning. We're going to ask for full custody of both girls, citing parental alienation and emotional misuse. You think we can get it? With this evidence? Jason, this chat log is a goldmine. They're literally discussing how to commit fraud and manipulate the court system. She started scribbling notes. Second, we're going to freeze all joint accounts and move your separate assets into a protected account. They want to claim you're hiding money. Let's actually hide some money. Is that legal? What they're planning isn't legal. What we're doing is protecting your legitimate interests while they're actively plotting to defraud you. Emily looked up from her notes. Third, we're going to document everything, every interaction, every conversation, every threat. When this goes to court, we want the judge to see exactly who these people really are. Jason felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Hope. There's something else, he said, pulling out his phone. The video of Melissa and Zane is all over social media. Half the town's seen it by now. Emily watched the video, her expression growing more disgusted by the second. In front of your daughter's school. Classy. She made more notes. This actually helps us. Shows a pattern of reckless behavior and disregard for the children's well-being. The girls are humiliated. Their friends are all talking about it. Good. Maybe now they'll understand there are consequences for their actions. A car door slammed outside. Through the window, Jason saw Zane's BMW in his driveway. The man himself was walking toward the front door like he owned the place. That's him, Jason said. Emily looked out the window and snorted. Seriously, he looks like a used car salesman. The doorbell rang. Jason didn't move. It rang again, followed by pounding on the door. Jason. Zane's voice carried through the wood. Open up. We need to talk. Don't, Emily warned. The pounding got louder. I know you're in there, Jason. Your wife called me. We need to work this out like adults. Jason stood up. Emily grabbed his arm. Don't do anything stupid. I'm not going to punch him. I just want to look him in the eye. Jason opened the front door. Zane Morrison stood on his porch like he belonged there. Expensive suit, perfect haircut, the kind of confident smile that had probably been opening doors for him his whole life. Jason, good to finally meet you properly. Get off my property. Zane's smile didn't waver. Come on, man. This doesn't have to be ugly. Melissa and I, we're in love. It happens. People grow apart. They find new connections. It's nobody's fault. Nobody's fault. That's right. Look, I know this is hard for you, but fighting it is just going to make things harder for everyone, especially the girls. Jason stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind him. You're right. Let me ask you something, Zane. How long have you been screwing my wife? Zane's smile faltered slightly. I don't think that kind of language is... How long? 6 months. But Jason, you have to understand. And how long have you been helping her plan to destroy me? I don't know what you're talking about. Jason pulled out his phone and opened the voice recording from the kitchen. Zane's own voice filled the evening air. Zane says we should move fast. The longer we wait, the more complicated it gets. The color drained from Zane's face. Still nobody's fault? Jason asked. Look, I don't know how you got that, but I got it because you're idiots, all of you. Did you really think I was so stupid I wouldn't figure it out eventually? Zane straightened his tie, trying to regain his composure. The point is, what's done is done. Melissa's filing for divorce. You can make this easy or you can make it hard, but either way, it's happening. You're right, it is happening, but not the way you think. What's that supposed to mean? Jason smiled, a cold, carnivory expression that made Zane take a step back. It means you picked the wrong man to screw with, and now you're going to find out what happens when you corner a guy who's got nothing left to lose. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. You wanted a war? You got one? But remember, you fired the first shot. Zane opened his mouth to respond, but Jason had already gone back inside and slammed the door. Through the window, he watched Zane stand on the porch for a full minute, clearly shaken. Finally, the man walked back to his BMW and drove away. Feel better? Emily asked. Getting there. Over the next 3 hours, Emily helped Jason systematically dismantle his old life and prepare for battle. They opened a new bank account and transferred his separate assets. They gathered documentation for every joint account, every shared investment, every piece of property. They copied the chat logs, the audio recordings, and the viral video to multiple secure locations. Now, Emily said, packing up her briefcase, we wait for them to make their next move. And believe me, they will. People like this always overplay their hand. Jason walked her to her car. The neighborhood was quiet, porch lights glowing in the gathering darkness. For 20 years, this had been his sanctuary. Now it felt like a battlefield. Em, thanks for everything. We're family, Jason, and family protects family. She got in her car, then rolled down the window. One more thing. Document everything they do from now on. Every nasty comment, every threat, every attempt to turn the girls against you. When we get to court, we want the judge to see them for what they really are. After Emily left, Jason stood in his driveway, looking up at the bedroom window where he'd slept next to Melissa for 20 years. The light was on, but he could see her silhouette moving around, probably still packing. His phone buzzed. A text from Cole. Heard about the drama at school. You okay, man? Jason typed back. Been better? Rain check on that beer? Hell no. You need to get out of that house. Meet me at Murphy's in an hour. Jason almost smiled. Cole Henderson had worked the loading dock at the warehouse for 15 years. Salt of the earth, loyal as a dog, and tough enough to bench press a small car. If Jason was going to war, he could think of worse people to have in his corner. He went inside to grab his jacket and found Ava and Rachel in the living room, both looking miserable. They'd obviously heard about their grandmother's arrest and their mother's humiliation at school. Dad? Rachel's voice was small, uncertain. She looked younger than her 14 years. What is it, sweetheart? Are you and Mom really getting divorced? Jason studied his younger daughter's face. Unlike Ava, Rachel had always been sensitive, easily influenced by others. The cruelty in the chat logs had surprised him. It wasn't like her. Yes, he said simply. We are. Is it because of the video? Ava asked. Her usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like shame. The video is just the proof of something that's been going on for a long time. We didn't know, Rachel said quickly. About Mom and him. We didn't know she was cheating. Jason looked at both his daughters. The children he'd raised, loved, provided for. Children who'd called him pathetic and planned his destruction. But you knew about the divorce plans. You knew about taking my pension and my house. The girls exchanged glances. Ava lifted her chin defiantly, but Rachel looked ready to cry. We were just... Mom said... What did Mom say, Rachel? She said you didn't love us anymore, that you were planning to leave us and we needed to protect ourselves. Jason felt something twist in his chest. Even now, even caught red-handed, Melissa was still manipulating the situation. And you believed her? I don't know, Rachel whispered. I was scared. Jason knelt down so he was eye level with his younger daughter. Rachel, look at me. When have I ever given you reason to think I don't love you? Never, she admitted, tears starting to fall. Then why would you think I'd abandon you now? Because Mom said, Mom lied about a lot of things, and now everyone's going to have to live with the consequences. He stood up and headed for the door, then paused and looked back. For what it's worth, girls, I still love you, both of you. But love doesn't mean I'm going to let you destroy me. Jason left them sitting in the living room and drove to Murphy's bar, where Cole was waiting with 2 beers and a listening ear. So, Cole said after Jason had finished his story, what's the plan? Survive, win custody, keep my house and my pension. That's not a plan, that's a wish list. What's the actual plan? Jason took a long drink of his beer and smiled grimly. The actual plan is to give them exactly what they're expecting, which is for me to self-destruct. They want me to have a breakdown, to do something stupid that proves I'm unstable, so that's exactly what I'm going to give them. Cole raised an eyebrow. That sounds like actual self-destruction. No, it sounds like strategy. They're expecting the old Jason, the guy who keeps his head down and takes whatever they dish out. But that guy is gone. Jason finished his beer and signaled for another. What they're going to get is someone they've never met before, someone who's done playing by their rules. And if it backfires? Jason shrugged. Then I lose everything. But I'm going to lose everything anyway if I do nothing. At least this way I go down fighting. The first shot in Jason's counterattack came at dawn on a Tuesday morning. While Melissa slept upstairs and the girls got ready for school, Jason sat in his kitchen with his laptop, uploading files to a dozen different platforms. The Freedom Plan chat logs went to the family court clerk's office, marked as evidence for his custody petition. The video of Melissa and Zane went to the school board with a formal complaint about inappropriate behavior on school property. And both pieces of evidence, along with the audio of his daughters mocking him, went to Sarah Martinez's older brother, a journalism student at the community college who ran a popular local blog called Hometown Drama. By the time Melissa came downstairs for coffee, Jason's story was already spreading across social media. The headline read, "Local family caught planning to destroy father. Chat logs and audio reveal shocking plot." "Morning," Jason said, not looking up from his newspaper. Melissa poured her coffee and sat down across from him. She'd been staying in the guest room since the attack incident, and the tension in the house was thick enough to cut with a knife. "The girls are asking questions," she said. "About what?" "About what happens next? Where we're going to live, what school they'll attend?" Jason folded his newspaper and looked at his wife. She'd lost weight in the past week, and there were dark circles under her eyes. The stress was getting to her. "Well," he said conversationally, "that depends on what the judge decides. Jason, we need to talk, really talk, about working something out. I thought we were past talking. You made it pretty clear where you stand." "I was angry. I said things I didn't mean." Jason almost laughed. "Which things didn't you mean? That you've been screwing Zane for 6 months? That you and the girls have been planning to destroy me? That you haven't loved me in years? Be specific?" Melissa flinched. "I know I hurt you. You tried to erase me. There's a difference." "What do you want, Jason? Money? I'll split everything 50-50, no arguments." "Too late." "What's that supposed to mean?" Jason's phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Melissa's lawyer called. They want to meet. Also, check the news." Jason showed Melissa the text. "It means your lawyer already knows you're screwed." "What are you talking about?" Instead of answering, Jason turned on the kitchen TV and flipped to the local morning news. The anchor was reading from a teleprompter with barely concealed amusement. "Shocking story out of Millbrook this morning, where leaked chat logs reveal a local family's elaborate plan to financially destroy the husband and father. The documents, obtained by our affiliate blog Hometown Drama, show months of coordination between the wife, her 2 teenage daughters, and her mother-in-law to provoke what they called a breakdown that would allow them to claim all marital assets." Melissa's coffee mug slipped from her hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. "The story has already gained significant traction on the social media," the anchor continued, with many calling it a cautionary tale about modern marriage and parental alienation. "We've also obtained exclusive video footage showing the wife in question engaged in a romantic encounter with another man in broad daylight." The screen filled with the now infamous parking lot video. Jason had seen it a dozen times, but watching it on the morning news while sitting across from his wife gave it a surreal quality. "Turn it off," Melissa whispered. "Why? This is just the beginning." As if on cue, Jason's phone started ringing. Unknown number. "Mr. Walsh, this is Janet Morrison from Channel 7 News. We'd like to interview you about the story that broke this morning." Jason declined politely and hung up, but the phone immediately rang again. Different number, different reporter. "How many people did you send this to?" Melissa asked, her voice shaking. "Everyone who needed to see it. You've destroyed us. The girls. How are they supposed to face their friends after this? The same way I was supposed to face mine after that video went viral. Funny how you weren't worried about humiliation when it was happening to me." Upstairs, they could hear Ava screaming into her phone. "I can't go to school. Everyone's talking about it. Mom, do something." Rachel appeared in the kitchen doorway, her backpack over her shoulder, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, kids at school are saying terrible things. They're calling us gold diggers and worse." For a moment, Jason's resolve wavered. This was his baby girl, and she was in pain. But then he remembered her voice on the audio recording, laughing as she called him pathetic. "Actions have consequences, sweetheart. You and your sister made choices. Now you get to live with them." "But we didn't know it would be like this." "You didn't know what would happen when you helped plan to destroy your own father? You thought there wouldn't be any fallout?" Melissa stood up abruptly. "Don't take this out on them. They're children. They're old enough to participate in fraud and conspiracy. They're old enough to face the results. Jason, please. Call off the media. Make this stop. I'll give you whatever you want." Jason looked at his wife. Really looked at her. 20 years of marriage, and he was finally seeing her clearly. Without the makeup and the performance, she looked older, harder. The mask was slipping. "What I want," he said quietly, is for you to understand what it feels like to have your entire life turned into entertainment for other people. His phone rang again. This time he recognized the number. Mr. Dempsey, the principal at Roosevelt High. Mr. Walsh, we need to talk. Can you come in this morning? What about the situation with your daughters and the publicity? It's becoming disruptive to the school environment. Jason agreed to meet with Dempsey after lunch, then turned back to his family. Melissa was frantically texting someone, probably Zane. Rachel was crying quietly, and Ava's tantrum could still be heard from upstairs. This is what you wanted, he said to no one in particular. A war. Congratulations, you're winning. The irony wasn't lost on him. For months, his family had been treating him like he was invisible, irrelevant, already gone. Now, suddenly, he was the center of attention. The only problem was that the attention was destroying them all. Jason finished his coffee, grabbed his work jacket, and headed for the door. Where are you going? Melissa called after him. To work. Some of us still have jobs. But as he drove to the warehouse, Jason's phone kept buzzing with calls from reporters, bloggers, and random strangers who'd seen the story online. By noon, #FreedomPlan was trending on Twitter, and Jason Walsh had become an accidental symbol of wronged husbands everywhere. The meeting with Principal Dempsey was brief and uncomfortable. The man clearly wanted to stay neutral, but the disruption to the school was becoming impossible to ignore. The girls are having a rough time, Dempsey said carefully. Other students are discussing the situation quite freely. Kids talk. That's what they do. Mr. Walsh, I understand you're going through a difficult time, but we need to think about what's best for Ava and Rachel. What's best for them would have been not participating in a conspiracy to defraud their father. But that ship has sailed. Dempsey shifted uncomfortably. Perhaps we could arrange for them to finish the semester remotely. Give things time to cool down? That's between you and their mother. As of right now, I don't have custody. About that, I've been asked to provide a character reference for the custody hearing. Jason met the principal's eyes. And what are you going to say? That you've always been involved in your daughter's education, that you've never missed a parent-teacher conference or school event, that until this week, I had no reason to question your fitness as a parent. Until this week. Mr. Walsh, I have to ask, the way this information became public, it feels very calculated, very strategic. Jason stood up. Principal Dempsey, my family spent months planning to destroy me. They documented their plans in writing. They involved children in financial fraud. They tried to make me have a mental breakdown so they could claim I was an unfit parent. Now that their plans are public, suddenly everyone's concerned about my methods. I'm just saying. You're just saying that it was fine when they were ruining my life in private, but now that it's affecting the school, suddenly I'm the problem. Dempsey didn't respond, which was answer enough. Jason left the school and drove to Emily's office, where she was waiting with updates on the legal front. Good news and bad news, she said, gesturing for him to sit. Good news is that Melissa's lawyer wants to settle immediately. They're offering you 70% of all assets and joint custody. And the bad news? The judge wants to meet with you privately before the custody hearing. Apparently, she's concerned about the public nature of this case. Meaning? Meaning Judge Patricia Flanders doesn't like media circuses in her courtroom. She thinks you might have orchestrated this whole thing for maximum humiliation rather than maximum justice. Jason rubbed his temples. Did I go too far? Maybe, but maybe that's what it took. Look at this. Emily slid a folder across her desk. Zane Morrison's employment records. Guess what? He's married, has been for 8 years. His wife filed for divorce yesterday after she saw the video. So he's getting his own dose of karma. Better than that. His wife is claiming he's been using marital assets to support his affair with Melissa. Expensive dinners, hotel rooms, gifts for the girls. She's going after him for everything. Jason felt a grim satisfaction. What goes around gets better. I did some digging into his business. Turns out Mr. Successful Entrepreneur has been cooking the books at his consulting firm. The IRS is very interested in having a conversation with him. How did you find all this? Emily smiled. I have friends in useful places. The point is, your wife picked a winner. By the time his legal troubles are over, Zane's going to be broke and possibly in prison. Jason's phone buzzed with another call from an unknown number. He was about to decline when Emily stopped him. Answer it. If it's another reporter, tell them you're preparing a statement for release tomorrow. Build the suspense. But it wasn't a reporter. It was Melissa, and she was crying. Jason, please, you have to make this stop. Ava won't come out of her room. Rachel's been throwing up all morning. They can't handle this. Where are you calling from? Zane's apartment, but Jason, things aren't what I thought they were. Trouble in paradise? He's married. He never told me he was married, and now his wife is calling me, screaming at me, threatening to sue me. Jason almost felt sorry for her. Almost. And I think I made a terrible mistake. All of this, the divorce, the plan, everything. I was angry and stupid, and I let Mom convince me that you were the enemy. I was never your enemy, Mel. I was just your husband. I know that now. Is there any way we can fix this? Any way to put things back together? Jason looked at Emily, who was shaking her head vigorously. It's too late for that, he said finally. Please, Jason, I'll do anything. I'll make the girls apologize publicly. I'll tell everyone this was all my fault. Just please make the media attention stop. You want it to stop? Then stop fighting the divorce. Give me full custody of the girls and walk away. I can't do that. They're my daughters too. Then we have nothing to talk about. Jason hung up and turned to Emily. How long until this dies down? Could be days, could be weeks. Depends on whether something bigger comes along to distract people. She leaned back in her chair. The question is, are you prepared for what comes next? Which is, they're going to get desperate. And desperate people do stupid things. Melissa's already lost her job. The school board fired her this morning for the scandal. Gloria's facing attack charges. The girls are social pariahs at school. They've got nothing left to lose. What are you saying? I'm saying be careful. Document everything and maybe consider staying somewhere else for a few nights. As if on cue, Jason's phone rang again. This time it was Cole. Jason, you need to get home. Now. What's wrong? Someone trashed your truck, keyed the paint, slashed the tires, broke the windows, and there's something spray painted on your garage door you're going to want to see. Jason's blood went cold. I'm on my way. 20 minutes later, he stood in his driveway surveying the damage. His truck looked like it had been attacked with a sledgehammer and a knife. All 4 tires were flat, the windshield was spiderwebbed with cracks, and someone had keyed "fool" into the paint on both sides. But it was the garage door that really got his attention. In red spray paint, someone had written, "You'll pay for this," in letters 3 feet tall. Any idea who did it? Cole asked. Oh, I've got some ideas. Jason called the police, who took photos and a report, but warned him that without witnesses or security cameras, there wasn't much they could do. The responding officer, a young woman named Martinez, seemed sympathetic but realistic. Sir, I've seen the news coverage about your situation. I'm not saying your family did this, but maybe consider staying somewhere else for a while. Things like this tend to escalate before they get better. Jason nodded and called Emily, who immediately offered her guest room. As he packed a bag, he could feel his neighbors watching from their windows. Some looked sympathetic, others looked like they were enjoying the show. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is just the beginning. You destroyed my family. Now I'm going to destroy you. Jason showed the text to Officer Martinez, who added it to her report and advised him to forward any additional threats directly to the police. One more thing, Mr. Walsh, she said as she prepared to leave. I know this situation has gotten out of hand, but try not to take matters into your own hands. Let the system work. The system, Jason repeated. I know it's frustrating, but vigilante justice tends to backfire, especially when there are cameras everywhere and reporters watching your every move. After the police left, Jason stood in his driveway looking at the destruction. 20 years of marriage, and it had come to this. His own family, or someone acting on their behalf, had vandalized his home and threatened his safety. Cole helped him load his bag into Emily's car. You sure you don't want to stay at my place instead? I've got a spare room and a shotgun. Thanks, but I think Emily's couch is safer for everyone involved. As they drove away from Maple Street, Jason caught a glimpse of movement in his upstairs bedroom window. Someone was watching him leave, probably Melissa, back from Zane's apartment to survey the damage she'd helped create. His phone rang one more time as they pulled into Emily's driveway. Unknown number, but this time Jason answered. Mr. Walsh, this is Detective Ray Santos with the Fraud Division. We need to talk. Detective Santos met Jason at Emily's house the next morning, bringing coffee and a thick file folder. He was a compact man in his 50s with the kind of weathered face that had seen everything twice. Mr. Walsh, I've been investigating financial fraud cases for 20 years, and I have to say, your situation is unique. How so? Most fraud schemes try to hide the evidence. Your wife and her family documented everything. Santos opened his folder and spread out printouts of the chat logs. This is either the work of complete amateurs or people who wanted to get caught. Emily leaned forward. What are you thinking? I'm thinking this was never just about the money. Look at the language they use. They're not just planning to take his assets. They're planning to humiliate him, to make him suffer. Jason studied the detective's face. Is that your professional opinion or your personal one? Both. I've seen a lot of financial misuse cases, and there's usually an emotional component. Someone feels wronged, overlooked, undervalued. They want revenge as much as they want money. So, what happens now? Now we build a case. The chat logs show clear intent to commit fraud, conspiracy to conceal assets, and what looks like a plan to manipulate court proceedings. Santos pulled out more documents. Plus, we've got the attack charge against your mother-in-law and evidence of maltreatment related to the vandalism at your house. Can you prove they were behind the vandalism? Working on it. But Mr. Walsh, I need you to understand something. This case is going to get worse before it gets better. When people face serious criminal charges, they tend to make desperate choices. As if summoned by his words, Jason's phone rang. Melissa. Don't answer, Emily warned. Jason looked at Santos, who nodded and pulled out a recording device. Go ahead, but keep me on speaker, Jason answered. What do you want, Mel? I want to make a deal. Her voice was strained, desperate. I'll withdraw the divorce petition. I'll give you full custody. I'll even move out of the house. Just make the criminal investigation go away. I can't do that. Yes, you can. You're the sufferer. You can ask them to drop the charges. Detective Santos was taking notes furiously. Melissa, even if I wanted to help you, which I don't, it's too late. This isn't just about you anymore. Gloria's facing attack charges. Zane's business is under investigation. The whole thing is spiraling. Because you made it spiral. You could have handled this privately, but you had to destroy us all. I didn't destroy anything. I just made your plan public. Our daughters are suffering, Jason. Ava dropped out of school. She can't leave the house without people recognizing her and making comments. Rachel's having panic attacks. Jason felt the familiar pang of guilt, but Detective Santos was shaking his head. That's not my fault, Melissa. That's the consequence of their choices. They're children. They're old enough to know right from wrong, and they chose wrong. There was a long pause. When Melissa spoke again, her voice was different, harder, more calculated. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, then let's play. You think you've won because you got to the media first? You have no idea what's coming. Is that a threat? It's a promise. You started this war, Jason, but I'm going to finish it. The line went dead. Detective Santos was already on his radio, requesting additional patrols for Emily's neighborhood. Mr. Walsh, I strongly recommend you consider protective custody until this thing settles down. You think she's that dangerous? I think desperate people are unpredictable. And your wife just moved from bargaining to threatening in the span of a single phone call. 3 hours later, Jason was sitting in family court across from Judge Patricia Flanders, a stern woman in her 60s who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Mr. Walsh, I've reviewed your petition for emergency custody, and I have to say, this is one of the most disturbing cases I've seen in 30 years on the bench. Thank you, Your Honor. That wasn't a compliment. The evidence of fraud and parental alienation is compelling, but your decision to make this a public spectacle raises serious questions about your judgment. Jason felt Emily tense beside him. Your Honor, my client was the sufferer of a coordinated campaign of emotional and financial misuse. He had every right to defend himself. By turning his family's private dysfunction into a media circus? By exposing criminal behavior? Emily shot back. The fraud was real. The conspiracy was real. The emotional misuse was real. Making it public doesn't make it less valid. Judge Flanders studied the documents in front of her. Mr. Walsh, I'm inclined to grant you temporary custody of your younger daughter, Rachel. The evidence suggests she was coerced into participating in this scheme and may be experiencing genuine remorse. What about Ava? Your older daughter's participation appears more voluntary and more malicious. I'm not convinced she's ready to accept responsibility for her actions. Jason felt a mixture of relief and heartbreak. He was getting Rachel back, but losing Ava, maybe forever. However, the judge continued, this custody arrangement comes with conditions. First, you will cease all media contact regarding this case. No more interviews, no more statements, no more social media posts. Second, you will attend family counseling with Rachel to address the trauma this situation has caused both of you. Understood, Your Honor. Third, if there are any further incidents of maltreatment, threats, or violence connected to this case, I will revisit this custody arrangement. Are we clear? Crystal clear. As they left the courthouse, Emily was almost giddy with relief. Jason, do you realize what just happened? You got primary custody based on fraud evidence. That almost never happens in family court. What about Ava? Ava made her choice. Maybe losing her family will make her realize what she threw away. That evening, Jason returned to his house for the first time in 3 days. The vandalism had been cleaned up, but the memory of it lingered. Cole was waiting in the driveway with a truck full of security equipment. Cameras, motion sensors, and an alarm system, he explained. If anyone comes near this place, we'll know about it. As they installed the security system, Jason's phone buzzed with updates from Detective Santos. Zane's business had been raided by the IRS. Gloria had been indicted on fraud charges in addition to the attack, and Melissa had been evicted from Zane's apartment. Apparently, his wife had gotten a restraining order. Where is she staying? Jason asked. Unknown. She's not answering her phone, and her credit cards haven't been used in 2 days. That's not good. No, it's not. People who disappear in the middle of criminal investigations tend to be planning something. Rachel came home that night with a social worker who supervised the transition. She looked smaller somehow, like the past week had aged her years. Hi, Dad, she said quietly. Hi, sweetheart. How are you holding up? Not great, but better than Ava. How is your sister? Rachel shrugged. She won't talk to anyone. She blames you for everything that's happened, but she also knows it's her fault. She's confused. That night, as Rachel settled into her old room, Jason felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Peace. His daughter was home, safe, away from the toxic influence that had been poisoning her against him. But the peace didn't last long. At 3 a.m., the new security system started screaming. Jason jolted awake and checked the cameras on his phone. A figure in dark clothing was moving around his backyard, carrying what looked like a gasoline can. Jason called 911, then grabbed the baseball bat Cole had insisted he keep by his bed. Through the bedroom window, he could see someone pouring liquid around the base of his garage. Rachel! He shouted, pounding on her door. Get up! We need to get out of the house! She appeared in her pajamas, confused and scared. What's happening? Someone's trying to burn down the garage. We need to leave. Now! They were halfway down the stairs when Jason heard the whoosh of igniting gasoline. Orange light flickered through the kitchen windows. Dad, I'm scared. I know, baby. But we're going to be okay. They made it to the front door just as the police sirens became audible. Jason pushed Rachel toward Emily's car, which was parked in the driveway, and turned back to see flames climbing the side of his garage. The arsonist was gone, but the damage was done. By the time the fire department arrived, the garage was fully engulfed, and the flames were spreading toward the house. Detective Santos arrived as the firefighters were bringing the blaze under control. Anyone hurt? He asked. No, but we lost the garage and probably half the house. Could have been worse. Arson's a felony, Mr. Walsh. Someone's escalating this situation beyond financial fraud. Jason looked at his burning home, the house where he'd raised his daughters, celebrated birthdays and Christmases, built a life that was now literally going up in smoke. Any doubt about who did this? Security cameras caught someone in dark clothing, but we can't make out a face. Could be your wife. Could be someone acting on her behalf. Santos paused. There's something else. We found Melissa's car abandoned at the bus station downtown. She's in the wind. Rachel was crying quietly in Emily's arms, watching 20 years of family memories turn to ash. Jason put his arm around his daughter and made a decision. Detective, I want you to find her. All of them. And I want you to throw the book at them. Even if it means Ava goes to prison? Jason looked at the burning ruins of his life and felt something cold settle in his chest. Especially if it means Ava goes to prison. They wanted to erase me? Fine. Now I'm going to return the favor. 6 months later, Jason stood in the conference room of Morrison, Fletcher and Associates, watching Zane's lawyer desperately try to negotiate a settlement. The man who had once strutted around like he owned the world now looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Mr. Walsh, the lawyer was saying, my client is prepared to pay substantial damages for the defamation. Defamation? Emily interrupted. Your client was caught on video having an affair with a married woman. He participated in a conspiracy to commit financial fraud. How exactly is stating facts defamatory? Zane himself sat at the far end of the table, refusing to make eye contact with Jason. The IRS investigation had destroyed his business. His wife had taken him for everything in their divorce, and now he was facing multiple felony charges. The video was leaked without consent, Zane's lawyer continued weakly. That constitutes invasion of privacy. The video was shot in a public place, Jason said calmly. And even if it wasn't, truth is an absolute defense to defamation claims. Emily slid a thick folder across the table. Here's our countersuit. Conspiracy, fraud, emotional distress, and interference with family relationships. We're seeking $2 million in damages. Zane's face went white. I don't have $2 million. Then you shouldn't have screwed with someone else's family, Jason replied. The meeting ended 20 minutes later with Zane's lawyer promising to review the situation and get back to them. Jason knew they'd never see a dime. Zane was already bankrupt. But watching the man who'd helped destroy his marriage squirm had been worth the legal fees. Outside the law office, Emily was practically bouncing with excitement. Did you see his face when we mentioned the countersuit? I thought he was going to throw up. What's the latest on Gloria? Sentenced to 6 months for attack and fraud. She'll probably serve 3 with good behavior. Emily consulted her notes. Melissa's still missing, but there's a warrant out for arson and conspiracy. She can't hide forever. And Ava? Emily's expression sobered. Still refusing to cooperate with the plea deal. Her lawyer thinks she's heading for trial. Jason nodded grimly. His elder daughter had been arrested 3 weeks after the fire, found hiding in a motel 2 states away. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Her fingerprints on the gasoline can, her credit card used to buy accelerant security footage, placing her near the house on the night of the fire. But Ava was still maintaining her innocence, claiming she'd been framed. The 17-year-old who'd once mocked her father as pathetic was now facing adult charges for arson and attempted homicide. Any word from Rachel? Emily asked. She writes Ava letters every week, hasn't gotten a single reply. Rachel had been living with Jason in a rented apartment while their house was being rebuilt. The insurance investigation had taken months, but they'd finally settled for enough to construct something bigger and better than what they'd lost. More importantly, Rachel was thriving. Away from her mother's toxic influence and her sister's cruel example, she'd started to remember who she used to be before the family conspiracy began. She was back in school, making new friends, and seeing a therapist twice a week to work through the trauma. Dad, she'd said the night before, I want to testify at Ava's trial. You don't have to do that, sweetheart. Yes, I do. She needs to hear from someone who was there, someone who participated in the plan, someone who knows how wrong it was. Jason's phone buzzed with a text from Detective Santos. Got her. Melissa Walsh arrested in Portland. Extradition in progress. Finally. After 6 months of looking over his shoulder, wondering when his ex-wife would resurface to cause more damage, it was over. That evening, Jason stood in the backyard of his new house, watching Rachel help Cole install a swing set they'd surprised her with for her 15th birthday. The girl who'd once called him pathetic was now laughing as she tested the chains, looking more like the child she should have been all along. You did good, man, Cole said, joining him on the deck. Look at her. Happy, healthy, normal. You saved her. She saved herself. I just gave her the space to do it. And Ava? Jason was quiet for a long moment. Ava made her choice. She had a dozen opportunities to walk away from her mother's plan, to choose her family over revenge. She picked revenge every time. She's still your daughter. Is she? Because the daughter I raised wouldn't have tried to burn down her own house with her sister inside. Cole didn't argue. He'd seen the security footage, heard Rachel's tearful testimony about waking up to smoke alarms and her father pounding on her door. If Jason hadn't installed those cameras, if the fire department had been 5 minutes later, Rachel might not have survived. So what's next? Cole asked. Next, I testify at Ava's trial. Then I testify at Melissa's trial. Then I try to rebuild some kind of normal life. And the blog? Jason smiled slightly. After the custody hearing, he'd started a blog called Erased Fathers, a support group for men who'd been alienated from their children through parental manipulation. What had started as a therapeutic outlet had grown into a movement with thousands of followers and dozens of success stories. The blog keeps growing. I've got 3 fathers' rights organizations wanting me to speak at their conferences next month. From warehouse worker to men's rights advocate. Hell of a career change. I'm still working at the warehouse. This is just extra. But Jason knew it was more than that. The boy who'd been dismissed and erased by his own family had found his voice. and that voice was helping other men fight back against the system that had tried to destroy him. His phone rang. Rachel's therapist, Dr. Kim. Mr. Walsh, I wanted to update you on Rachel's progress. She's made remarkable strides in processing the trauma and rebuilding her sense of self-worth. That's good to hear. There's something else. She's asked me to help her write a sufferer impact statement for her sister's sentencing hearing. She wants to explain how the conspiracy affected her, not just you. Jason felt a surge of pride mixed with sadness. Rachel was finding her voice too, but at such a terrible cost. Do you think that's healthy for her? I think it's necessary. She needs to own her story, not let other people tell it for her. That night, as Jason tucked Rachel into bed in her new room, she looked up at him with eyes that seemed older than her years. Dad, do you think Ava will ever forgive us? Forgive us for what? For not saving her, for letting her become someone who could do what she did. Jason sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. Sweetheart, you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Ava had the same choices you had, the same opportunities to walk away from your mother's plan. You chose to come home. She chose to double down. But she's my sister. She'll always be your sister, but that doesn't mean she gets to keep hurting people without consequences. Rachel nodded, but Jason could see the pain in her eyes. She was mourning the sister she'd lost, the family that had been destroyed, the innocence that could never be recovered. I love you, Dad. I'm sorry for everything I said before, everything I did. I love you too, baby, and you don't need to apologize anymore. We're building something new now, something better. As Rachel drifted off to sleep, Jason walked to his home office and opened his laptop. A dozen emails from men sharing their own stories of parental alienation, asking for advice, thanking him for giving them hope. He was in the middle of responding when his phone buzzed with a news alert. Local woman charged with arson dies in jail cell. Apparent self-destruction. Jason's blood went cold. The article was brief, but devastating. Melissa Walsh, 41, had been found dead in her holding cell at the county jail. An apparent self-destruction by hanging. A note had been found, but its contents weren't being released, pending investigation. Jason stared at the screen, feeling nothing at first. Then a strange mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that the threat was finally over, that Rachel was truly safe. Sadness for the woman Melissa had once been, before bitterness and entitlement had turned her into someone capable of trying to homicide her own family. His phone rang immediately. Emily. Jason, did you see? I saw. How are you feeling? Tired, relieved, empty. Jason rubbed his eyes. She was the mother of my children, Em. 20 years ago, I loved her enough to marry her, and now she's dead in a jail cell because she couldn't live with the consequences of her choices. You didn't do this to her, Jason. She did it to herself. I know, but that doesn't make it easier. The next morning brought reporters to Jason's door, wanting his reaction to his ex-wife's self-destruction. He politely declined all interviews and focused on helping Rachel process the news. She cried for an hour, mourning the mother who'd tried to destroy their family, then asked if they could visit Ava in juvenile detention. I need to tell her, Rachel said. She needs to hear it from family, not from some guard or lawyer. The visit was heartbreaking. Ava looked thin and pale in her orange jumpsuit, her once perfect hair hanging limp around her face. When Rachel told her about their mother's passing, Ava simply stared at the table and nodded. She left a note, Rachel said quietly. The police won't tell us what it said, but they said it mentioned both of us. Ava looked up for the first time since they'd arrived. Her eyes were hollow, empty of the arrogance and cruelty that had once defined her. She said she was sorry, Ava whispered. Sorry for what she'd turned us into. Sorry for what she'd made us do. Did she say anything else? That Dad was right. That we destroyed our own family because we were too proud to admit we were wrong. Ava's voice broke. She said she couldn't live knowing that Rachel almost died because of our plan. Jason felt something twist in his chest. Even in death, Melissa was still manipulating the situation, still trying to control the narrative. But looking at Ava's broken face, he realized the manipulation might finally be working in reverse. Ava, he said quietly, it's not too late to make different choices. She looked at him through the reinforced glass, and for a moment he saw a glimpse of the little girl who used to climb into his lap to hear bedtime stories. Yes, it is, Dad. I tried to eliminate you. I tried to eliminate Rachel. There's no coming back from that. There's always a chance to do better. To be better. Ava shook her head. I don't know how to be better. I don't even know who I am without all the anger. The visit ended 20 minutes later, with Ava still refusing to accept the plea deal that would reduce her charges. She was determined to face trial as an adult, convinced she deserved whatever punishment the system handed down. In the car afterward, Rachel was quiet for a long time. She's giving up, she finally said. Maybe. Or maybe she's finally taking responsibility for her actions. What's the difference? Jason considered the question as they drove through their rebuilt neighborhood. Taking responsibility means you accept the consequences, but keep trying to be better. Giving up means you let the consequences define you forever. Which one is Ava doing? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope we find out soon.